ahead and hit. Hey, everyone. Welcome. So we are doing chapter 8 today of Unlearn Your Anxiety and Depression. And remember, these last 6 chapters, they're all the same in both books. So the workbook section, this is really cool. If you have other symptoms too, the workbook section is for Unlearning Your Pain as well as anxiety and depression. This is week 2 of the workbook section, which is finding your inner strength. So I'm going to share the slides with you and we can go through the chapter. Here we go. So chapter 8, finding inner strength. And once you start doing this work, mind-body symptoms often change. So this is so good to remember. You cannot gauge yourself on if you're doing it right or not by if your symptoms are there or not. Okay, so don't be hard on yourself. They may start to get better and then get worse, or get worse for a short time before they get better. They can move from one part of the body to another, or shift from one symptom, such as pain, to another one, such as fatigue, anxiety, or dizziness. This confirms that you're on the right track. This is a good thing. I know it might not seem like it. I know we're used to kind of having this black and white view about pain and about symptoms, right? And some of us are perfectionists. So be so compassionate with yourself, because it can take weeks or months to rewire the brain. And please do not become discouraged or worried or upset. And putting a timetable on your recovery tends to put more pressure on you and creates far more fear and worry, right? So if we are thinking it should go this certain way, and because I'm good at most things, I'm going to be really good at healing, and I should do it the fastest of anyone and the best, right? I'm being a little, I may be exaggerating a little, but sometimes we approach it that way, and that actually slows it down. It's just so ironic. I know. It's frustrating. But this is what this pain is teaching you, basically, right? So PRT, just a reminder, pain reprocessing therapy, basics, that these are all neural circuits. So we want to interrupt the cycle of mind-body symptoms leading to fear, and the other 6 F's leading to more symptoms over time. So that's the pain fear cycle. And when we have pain and we react with fear, we actually produce more pain. And it's not just fear, it could be any of the 6 F's: fear, focus, fighting, frustration, trying to figure it out, and trying to fix your symptoms. Those are natural reactions to pain, but they also increase the production of pain. What we want to do is decrease the fear. So we want to change your relationship to the symptoms, no matter what they are and no matter how severe they are. So this is like Jedi level stuff, okay? This is not easy to do. No one's saying it's easy, right? These are advanced techniques, right? So if you're not at Jedi level yet, you're just a mere human, right? Like this is part of it, is just being compassionate with where you're at, and just realizing eventually you can get to this place where you can consider those symptoms an opportunity. And if that's annoying to hear, know that we've all been there where it's annoying to hear, right? So there's nothing wrong with you that today you might be like, okay, you know, how does anyone ever do that? But some of you might have had this. And sometimes when we have a new symptom come up that's a little different than our old one, it's easier to kind of laugh it off, just be like, oh, there's my brain again, right? Like if I'm ever coaching someone and I start getting that same pain later that day, it's very easy for me to say, oh, that was just my brain. It picked up on that. Easy to know, nothing to fear, right? It's kind of funny in a way, right? Okay, but if you are not considering them as an opportunity, that's kind of a normal thing. We want to get to this level where we're like, here's a chance to practice. I'm rewiring my brain. I can't do it when there's not a symptom. So when there's a symptom, that's good, because that means I have something to rewire in my brain, it's an opportunity to do that. Usually we'd want to avoid the symptoms, right? We do elaborate things, rituals to avoid symptoms, not doing certain activities, taking certain medicines, right? We avoid them when they're there. We make them mean something bad. We dread that they're coming. Sometimes even when you don't have them, you dread that they're coming, right? These reactions indicate that you're afraid of the symptoms. Of course you are, but also, unfortunately, this fear tends to make them worse, right? So again, yeah, Angela says, thanks for acknowledging it feels almost impossible some days, right? Like this information is not for you to use to beat yourself up and be like, okay, I'm so far from that. There's no way this will work for me. This is just kind of a outline of how it's going to go for you. And you're on your own journey of how that is, but you'll see little glimmers of this. You'll come into and out of this throughout your journey, right? You'll have these moments where you're like, oh, okay, I get that I don't have to be afraid of it. And then the pain can just disappear. And then it'll come back because you live your life and there's stress, right? So you're just rewiring the brain over time, right? I'm not saying it disappears and then you're cured forever, right? This is just a process. Instead of dreading the symptoms, you could look at them as opportunities. The best way to get rid of them is to stop fearing them. And one of the best ways to stop fearing them is to hope that they occur. Okay, so this is like, I don't even know what is beyond Jedi level, but this is beyond Jedi level, is to hope that they occur, right? So if you feel far from that and like you'll never get there, don't even worry about it. But the idea is when you're just willing to feel whatever your body feels, it actually usually doesn't last very long at all. Okay. And you get those opportunities to practice retraining your brain out of the pain neural circuits, right? So we put on our Pollyanna glasses, it's an opportunity, but really in real life, you'll start to see that more and more. I promise you. You could, if this feels good to you, there are people that get better by telling their brain that they hope it will occur, right? So they're like, bring it on, just give it to me, right? If this doesn't resonate with you, not everyone feels this way, right? This is one of the tools. And it can be really effective for some people just to show that they're not afraid. If you treat it like a bully and you're like, you can't do that to me, bring it on. I'll take it. Like for some people that works. So I'm curious if anyone in the chat wants to say like if this is the approach they use. You can tell it's not for me personally, but like I've seen it work with people. So if you get to the point where you're like, I hope it will occur, you meet these symptoms with a smile. That's what I try to do though, knowing that you'll be training the danger signal out of these symptoms by reminding your brain that these symptoms are not dangerous, they can't hurt you, and that they will be getting better over time. So leaning into the sensations. Yeah, and I haven't had the courage to say bring it on yet. Yeah, well, if that might just be the point you get to at some point where you're like, just bring it on, brain. So leaning into the sensations, this is good for everyone. This is what we do with becoming more mindful. Remember the mindfulness, being in the present moment. We're not thinking of the sensation as a diagnosis and a prognosis of how the rest of my life is going to be and how I've never made any progress. And we lean into the sensations. We're just there without fighting them. You're tolerating them without fear, and you view them with curiosity and interest. And that's a way to interpret the sensations of MBS differently, right? So I could say, this is an example I hear all the time. People say, this is nerve pain. I have nerve pain. And that conjures up a certain image of like some really severe damage or something that's really wrong, right? And other people that have done this, they might say, I have that kind of like crackly, like sparkly feeling, or the kind of buzzy feeling, or it kind of feels like fizzy, like pop, kind of has that like fizzy sensation. And anything that you can do to tolerate them without fear, to be curious about them, to watch them like a storm passing through, that will help them go through faster. It really will. It's like the opposite of what you think. If I avoid it and I can fight it, but if you actually go into it, they go away. And it trains your brain not to keep producing them, right? Yeah. Yeah. And Mary is just, I was just reading this. It's quite a process. I've been doing this for a year. My symptoms and fear have diminished greatly. Now, when the symptoms come, that makes it easier to say, bring it on. I'm not afraid of this. That happened before and it doesn't last as long. Yeah. Actually, you guys, I'm putting out a podcast today, a latest episode, and it's from a coaching call that I did. And right when we were doing some like visualization, she got her leg pain and she's like, can we just, can I hold up for a second and just tell you like how cool it is that now when I have a symptom, I just kind of laugh at it and, I don't make a big deal of it. And I actually see it as more proof and another opportunity, right? So it's actually like, you can listen to that and hear it in real time as she realized like that sensation that she had called, it was actually like nerve pain down her leg. Um, it just happened when we were talking about something stressful. So it's like, oh, that's just my brain telling me I'm stressed. And she reframed it and then she didn't fear it, right? So that's the kind of way you might picture it at some point. And remember, pain does not equal harm. Yes, thank you, Jennifer. That's such a good mantra. Pain does not equal harm. It really probably rarely, especially in the case of this kind of stuff, right? And even like sometimes I've had like a boot that wasn't fitting right. And I just remind myself, like, this isn't damaging my tissues, right? This isn't, I knew it wasn't like, you know, cutting it or anything. It was just pressure. And I was able to just tolerate, it was one of my ski boots. I was tolerating it until I got a chance to change it because I was like, this isn't damaging. Okay, so play with the sensations by watching them shift or move, or by putting an imaginary color on them or some glitter. You can have different names to the sensations. You might call them energy or warmth or tingling, right? That's what I was talking about. If you guys want to put any in the chat that you use that are helpful to you rather than saying sensation or pain. Glitter. Yeah, I love that glitter. I have to remember that one. Because yeah, sometimes we'll have people like imagine little paintbrushes painting it, or you could imagine if it was like an animal or object, what would it be? Just oh, tail tingles. That almost sounds like reminds me of like My Little Pony or something. Like it's just like cuter. And when it's like I use this example of when your foot falls asleep and is numb, and it is really kind of uncomfortable, like really unbearable for a little while when it's getting numb or unnumb, right? But we know what's going on. We know it's going to be soon. We know we don't make it a big deal. Like it doesn't ruin our day. We don't call our friend and be like, you won't believe this just happened, So we can reframe even very, intense sensations when we don't have the perspective of something fearful is going on. Okay, so for example, ringing in the ear, tinnitus or tinnitus, depending on what you say, can begin to listen to sounds as if they were a form of music. So you're hearing this, and then you're like, oh, it's almost like a radio station or like music, in order to reduce fear and focus. Any ideas what I can call GI stuff? Oh, bubbles. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, bubbles. What else? Sometimes I feel like it's just like really tight in my stomach, and that's like, oh, it's a reminder to breathe or to belly breathe. Um, but that's a good one. Let me think of what else for GI stuff. Any other ideas? Yeah, bubbles. That's a good one. Okay, so the main thing is to train your brain that it's not dangerous. So if you're thinking of little bubbles in your tummy, you're imagining someone like blowing bubbles, or you're imagining, a bubble machine or something, then that might give you a different perspective than, oh my gosh, I ate something that is, leaking through my leaky gut or whatever, right? Like there's very scary ways to look at sensation. And actually, if you were in a if you were in a bakery and you were smelling like the fresh cookies and stuff, you might get a sensation in your stomach that feels like that kind of pain, right? You'd be like stomach gurgling and you'd be like, oh, it just means I am like hungry for this, right? So a name for a sinus headache. That's good, huh? What do you guys think? A sinus headache? I'm trying to think on the spot, but um, what this is totally off topic, but I mean, kind of on. What I like to do, honestly, when you're saying something like a sinus headache, I look up what Louise Hay says about headaches, and she says headaches are like invalidating yourself. And she says sinuses are actually irritation with someone, usually someone close. So if I had a sinus headache, I might be like, okay, brain, like, what am I thinking is dangerous? Who am I kind of getting annoyed with that I need to just journal about maybe or rage on the page? Or how am I invalidating myself? So that's an idea too. But oh, you guys are good. Nostril nonsense. Okay. And fatigue. Okay, that one I've heard as kind of like, I'm like, it's my like slow mode or something like that. It's like my, um, oh, what was it? Someone was saying like a speedy and then like a slow, for like the, more like fight or flight versus freeze. Sometimes I will say like freezy, but turtle mode. Oh, turtle mode. So good at these. Oh no, my husband has a lot of sinus headaches. Oh, well. I know. It's probably like the other members of the family, not you. No, but I mean, I think that can also be like predictive coding, right? If that's something you tend towards, or that's just kind of a, um, it's those neural pathways are strong. Um, and I'm not getting into like saying sinuses are or aren't, but those are just ideas, right? Of how you can change it and reframe it so it's not so fearful. Okay, so this paradoxical intention, if you remember Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning, he was in the survival camps at Auschwitz. And this is like what he realized is it's not about the situation, it's more about what you're thinking about it as far as how you feel. So this is paradoxical. The harder you try to fall asleep, the more you don't fall asleep, right? When you're like, it's so important that I get sleep, that's when you're most likely to not get sleep. So we can see examples of that in our lives, right? You're so desperate for a relationship that you're like repulsive to people and you're still more desperate, right? So if one tries to stay awake, they often fall asleep. They're like really trying to stay awake. So our brain can do the opposite of what we're asking it to do. That's sometimes how the brain works. You don't have to ask why. It's just how it is. So sometimes people are like, why does my brain do this? So telling the brain to turn off may make things worse for some people, right? Even when we do somatic tracking and we're like, imagine, this shrinking down or whatever. And they're like, it just got worse. That's just the brain doing its thing, trying to protect you. Yelling at the brain can fall into the same category. We don't want to be at war with ourselves. So sometimes people are like, stupid brain, like we don't want to get to that level, right? Um, oh, and I love the thought when I get a migraine, they never last very long. Right. Yeah, just some little twist. Oh, this is my cue to breathe, or this is my cue to slow down, or this won't last. Okay, so when we think about reverse psychology, if we're saying don't touch that, a kid will touch it. And if a bully says you're ugly or stupid, and you say back, those are good ones, want to call me something else? Go ahead, I'm not afraid. Then the bully loses its power, right? So the Pat Benatar technique, hit me with your best shot. You know that song? Hit me with your best shot, fire away. Bring it on, give me more, make my day. You're not yelling at your brain though. You're not fighting it. You're just like that to that bully. You're just like, I'm fearless. You're just smiling. You can't hurt me. So that explains why some people say bring it on works. It's paradoxical. Yeah, exactly. So if this isn't for you, it doesn't have to be. But if it is for you, just like Go with that. Go with what you're most drawn to. And just remember, with all of this process, this is like a child having a temper tantrum. Remember those extinction bursts? The tantrum may initially get worse, right? But if you're like, bring it on, it's not going to stop me, or bring it on, I'm just going to rewire my brain this whole time. You can handle it. It can't harm you. But usually what happens is we get that pain and then we're like, oh no, this must mean we're not doing it right and something's really wrong. And then we get in back in fear, because that's how our brain can get us back in fear. And that's what it's used to. And it doesn't want to expend the energy to change these neural pathways, if this is really the safest way to operate since we've been doing it for a while, right? Okay, positive affect. Some people, or many people with chronic pain or other symptoms, find that they tend to become sad, depressed, angry, and even hopeless, right? This is normal and part of this process, and especially if you've been dealing with pain. Unfortunately, these states of mind tend to make everything worse. When people can move towards happiness, laughter, joy, grace, gratitude, and awe, they feel better and their symptoms improve. So remember, we're not just saying, okay, just be happy about your pain, but if you start taking one little baby step at a time, doing something that brings you more joy, thinking of things that bring you gratitude, feeling these emotions on purpose, even though you're starting from a pretty dire place, you can't feel both at the same time. You can't feel joy and fear at the same time. You can't feel gratitude and fear at the same time. So for at least that time that you're focusing positively, you're not feeling fear. So you're rewiring that neural circuit, okay? So this isn't just to be, again, like, I love my pain, I want more of it, but unless that feels genuine to you, which it might if you're at the Jedi level. And if you, let's go back to this. Understand on a deep level that you're not broken, you're not damaged, either physically or mentally, that you're healthy and you're going to get better. Okay, so just like with a cold, usually we're not like catastrophizing when we get a cold. We know within 3 days or so max, we'll get better, right? So that same type of attitude. Okay, I have some symptoms. They're going to get better the sooner when I'm not afraid of them. So as much as you can, feel those positive feelings. Take time to be grateful for as much as you can be grateful for in your life. Find ways to laugh, have some YouTube videos of babies or puppies or whatever, funny videos. Lowering the danger signal in the brain. And when you're doing that, you're lowering the danger signal in the brain, and you are even changing the expression of certain genes. Remember when we talked about depression maybe being genetic? You can change the expression of genes by doing more positive things. It's crazy. So find things to do that are fun and enjoyable, like playing card games or board games, learning how to do things that are silly, such as using a hula hoop or juggling. If you're like me, when I started this, I was like, oh, I'll get an instrument and learn how to play the ukulele. And it was more like work. So look for that if you're one of those like workaholic type of people. Like look for things that maybe you did as a kid that were fun for you, and don't overcomplicate it. Like, okay, I'll take a class that starts in September. It's like do little things like what a child would do. Just have some fun. Look for ways to enjoy simple interactions, right? They're interactions with just little, like, people at the supermarket maybe, or friends, online or by phone. Take the time to talk to people about simple things. Spend time with people who you enjoy, who are uplifting and understanding. And yeah, with Judith, she's asking about tapping to reduce a headache or allergies. I would say tapping can be good. And also, I've worked with some people who don't like the tapping on their head when they have those sensations. So there's so many ways to calm your nervous system. Find what works for you. But if you're drawn to tapping, there are definitely meditations for that. So find ways to just be happier. Are you noticing a trend, right? He's never like figure out the symptom and try to decrease it, right? He's like, try to be happier, try to do things that you enjoy, laugh more, be more grateful. Okay. You have the capacity to look on the bright side and have hope. I mean, even Viktor Frankl, he was in that camp and he found a way to have hope. So it's not, again, this is not to beat yourself up and if you're in a really low state right now, but also the sun will start shining a little better probably tomorrow or whatever. You'll start to feel a little better. And so look for that, those little glimmers. Take deep, slow breaths and allow feelings of happiness to spread throughout your brain and your body. So maybe you do a meditation that cultivates some happiness and try to spread that through your body. Connecting to spirituality in your life. There's something to this sensation of awe that when we focus on things that are much bigger than ourselves. So it could be nature, it could be a religion, or it could be, the universe or whatever it is that spending time with a baby could be a spiritual experience, right? Because you're just so awe-filled with that little being. So participate in activities that create a sense of awe, whatever for you feels right. I know I found a lot of peace in my mind, it felt like, through yoga, but yoga is not for everyone either, right? So find what works for you. Thoughts. So let's talk a little bit about thoughts. Most thoughts and feelings are subconscious. That means when we're like, I'm not really stressed, we might not be thinking that we're stressed, but subconsciously our nervous system's like, hey, watch out for that. Hey, this is dangerous. So subconscious thoughts can be happening that, they're like, remember third grade, but we're not consciously thinking of that. Our brain creates all of our thoughts and feelings, even the subconscious ones. You may also have thoughts that are weird, silly, petty, and even evil. Okay, so please take that in. If you're beating yourself up, if you have guilty feelings for any of the thoughts that you've had, because that's how our brains are. Nothing's wrong with you. These are normal. Everyone has them. And some of them may actually create a physical reaction of mind-body syndrome, right? Like the client that I was coaching on my coaching call, and she started feeling pain down her leg, just thinking of a stressful situation. And Dr. Schubiner has an incident that he talks about too, where he was just going into the kitchen and felt this back pain out of the blue. So he wasn't consciously thinking, but when he checked in with himself, because he's trained himself to not think, oh, I must have strained my back, right? He just thought, what was I thinking? And he realized he was thinking of a conflict that he hadn't even been realizing that, I find myself activated sometimes and I realize I'm having like an argument in my head with someone from 2 days ago, right? I'm like thinking of what I could have said. And this happens subconsciously. So most people with MBS have scary thoughts, right? Fearful, what if this could happen? Repetitive thoughts, like ruminating, and they can be overwhelming. So this is normal. You have a very active brain. And those repetitive thoughts, it's just another manifestation of MBS. Those are just neural circuits. So the brain is just trying to alert you or scare you, so it gives you different things to worry about. So you may think, okay, it really is important to worry about my niece's cat, or something, right? And then your brain is just used to worrying about things. That's like that habit of the brain, just like pain, that we want to teach it doesn't need to do anymore. Alexa says activated. I love that. Yeah, the word choice can be everything. Okay, so scary thoughts. See if you resonate with any of these. Are we sure it's mind-body syndrome or a neural circuit issue? Another doctor told me that I had inflammation. The pain is so bad, it must be physical damage or an injury. I just can't believe that my brain is so powerful or is powerful enough to cause all of these symptoms. Guys, I hear this all the time. This one seems so real, right? It's like this, my brain couldn't be causing this. My body is tender or it seems twisted. Can that be caused by my brain? I can feel the knots in my muscles and I have trigger points that need massaging, so it must be physical, right? No, the brain can cause that. The brain can cause a pull on one side and a loosening on the other. The brain has control of all of that. I had a traumatic injury to the area, which makes it hard to believe there's no damage. But right, injuries heal within 3 to 6 months. Even if this is MBS, can I really recover from all this pain after so many years? Yes, your brain is always plastic. It's always going to be changing. You can either change it to how it still is, or you change it to how you want it to be. How long will this take? I can't stand it anymore. Very common thought, also a scary thought. I'm sure I'll be the one who won't be able to do this. Okay, so if you have any of those, realize this is increasing my pain. So sometimes you can even find those thoughts, label them. Oh, there's another scary thought, and just kind of put it to the side. You're not going to stop your brain from producing it. But when you say, oh, there's a scary thought, and you believe it, or you say, there's a scary thought, oh no, I'm doing this wrong, right? You can increase your pain and fear. So these are normal concerns and questions. These worries are also coming from the brain. They are MBS, just different manifestations of the danger signal, trying to alarm or alert you, or simply trying to scare you. So if you're on the anxiety side of things, especially health anxiety, especially every new symptom, that's mind-body syndrome, that anxiety about focusing on your body and hyperfixating on it and being on high alert. So that's the good news. It's mind-body syndrome. So you can smile, take a nice slow breath, and say to yourself, that's interesting. That's my brain. This is just a thought. It's not important and can't harm me. It will pass. I'm okay. Then take another slow breath and move on with your day. Right? So try something like that if you're ruminating. Another analogy I like is I think I told you this on a pretty recent call, but the brain is like throwing a stick, like you'd throw it for a dog, right? And every time you bring it back, the brain is like keeps throwing it. But if you just let it throw that stick and you don't go chase it, the brain eventually stops doing that, right? So you don't have to believe every thought that comes up just because your brain produces it. If you have anxiety, listen to that. It's weird because we think we're doing something when we're thinking about something, solving a problem, but what our brain is actually doing is creating problems for us to solve. And it's just mind-body syndrome. So emotions, there are no bad or dangerous emotions. Have you heard that? No one has died by feeling their emotions, but many people have died trying not to, right? This is exactly the stuff we're talking about with mind body. So learn to just identify these feelings when they arise and meet them without fearing them, right? So if you're like, oh, this is anger, then you can have a different experience of anger than if you're like, oh, I shouldn't be angry. Good girls aren't angry. That's totally different. You can allow yourself to feel these feelings, learn to tolerate them and sit with them and express them in safe and healthy ways. Pay attention to how these emotions manifest themselves in your body without reacting to it. If this feels similar to somatic tracking, this is exactly what we do with emotions. In my coach training, I learned about processing emotions, and Peter Levine teaches this about processing trauma. It's just the same thing as somatic tracking. So just like you could say, this is a sensation down my leg, you could say anger feels like a tight chest and a burning, and it's really active and it clenches my jaw, and right, you could describe that for emotions to process them. Know that you're not in any danger. These emotions are normal. The physical sensations are manifestations of these underlying emotions. Have you had a time when your heart is broken and it actually feels like pain in your chest? Like, emotions and pain are in the same areas of the brain. So they've actually shown that taking Tylenol can help for emotional pain after breakup, right? Because they're so linked. So do the same thing with emotions. You'll be set. You can practice it with your pain and emotions and anxiety and depression. Often we're unable to identify a particular thought, emotion, or stressful life event that might be connected to a symptom. Do you guys resonate with that? You're like, I didn't feel stressed about anything, and this pain came. So don't worry. trying too hard to try to figure it out can be counterproductive. So in this initial phase, at least, it could happen from predictive coding that you're not aware you have. So just if you can identify it, great, but don't spend a lot of time being like, what's the thought? What's the emotion? I can't figure it out. Maybe it's something that is suppressed, or, just like keep going, and those patterns will become more clear. It's enough to know that your symptoms are due to mind-body syndrome, that they are temporary and will pass, that you are not damaged or broken, that your brain has learned these symptoms, and that you are in the process of overcoming them by reducing fear and worry about them, and that you will get better. So your main job when the pain comes or sensations, it's to reduce your fear and not worry about it. Easier said than done, I know, but that's the idea, right? Do not worry if your pain or other symptoms don't get better right away. Neural circuits, like bad habits, take time to reprogram. As long as you are reducing fear about these symptoms, you will get better. This practice is like training a puppy. You have to be persistent, consistent, patient, and kind. I was thinking about it too, just like quick, my little thoughts about this mixed in, but I was thinking about it like a weight loss journey, right? If someone's just doing like a fad diet, just trying to lose the weight, versus if someone's kind of doing this lifestyle change and maybe they're still craving some junk food, but if they're starting to eat more healthy and they're doing it over time, eventually, they'll start feeling better. And then those healthier foods will be easier and easier to eat and they won't crave the junk food as much. But it's just like you're doing some huge changes with the nervous system and brain. So be kind with yourself, be patient. The meditation for week 2, he summarizes with embracing emotions. And it's just what we were talking about, almost like somatic tracking for the emotion. And he actually has you feel it and ask yourself what's under it, right? So if you have fear that's coming up, you might have some sadness under it, or you might have some guilt under it, or you might have some anger under it. So, and then you could ask yourself again, what's under that emotion? And usually there's like sadness, guilt, fear, and what did I say? Anger. There's anger usually under. And then if you go even deeper, you could find compassion for yourself. So that's a cool meditation on unlearnyourpain.com. And you'll have the password if you've purchased the books, either of them. When you're feeling a symptom of MBS, close your eyes, experience the symptom. Oh, there's the bubbles, right? Oh, there's the swarm of bees. Well, that one isn't as positive, but yeah, there's the tingles. Oh, right. Close your eyes, experience the symptom. Know it can't harm you. See if you can feel what lies underneath. It's usually worry and fear. Feel, and then see how you react in your body. So like feel the worry and see how that feels in your body. And then once underneath that, okay. Let tears come as they will. Search underneath for feelings of compassion for yourself. Look for caring and kindness. Breathe deeply and sit with these feelings for a while. Notice what happens with the mind-body syndrome symptom that you started with. See if it has shifted. Often it will disappear as the other emotions are felt. There's a writing exercise for week 2, the unsent letters. So maybe we have negative feelings that we've been harboring and are causing us harm. And it's good to express them. So it could be unexpressed anger, resentment, fear, guilt, shame. It's also important to express gratitude and thankfulness to those whom we may have not had a chance to thank. So you could list possible recipients. It's often useful to write a letter to different aspects of yourself. You could write letters to your pain, to your subconscious mind, to different aspects of your person. ality. I didn't see that was hyphenated, to different aspects of your personality. You can write a compassionate letter to your younger self or to your future self who is happier, more at peace, and free of pain, anxiety, and depression. So, yeah, sometimes when we think of journaling, it's kind of popular to do the like angry journaling, which I totally love. It has its place. But sometimes it's actually really helpful to, yeah, have that gratitude. Remember the positive emotion we were talking about? They've actually done studies with some of these positive emotions, and some of them like reduce inflammation and increase your immunity and decrease your blood pressure to feel more gratitude every day. I mean, it's crazy. It affects your health. So definitely you can lean towards some of the gratitude ones, your future self ones, asking your future self how she did it, right? Um, or you can just kind of get mad at your pain or whatever. Okay. Okay. So after each letter, reflect on and write a description of what lessons you have learned from this person, what you've gained from your interaction with this person, even if the interaction was very destructive, in what ways you might have grown as a result of your relationship with this person, right? Maybe you're like, now I never tolerate crap from people anymore because of what this one person taught me in a painful way. Oh, maybe this is it. Okay, yep, this is it because there's just those writing exercises. And what are your guys' thoughts? What are your questions? And yeah, I like that too. Reflect on what you learned, right? Because sometimes we just do, I was really into journal speak for a while, and it's like, just write it and then rip it up. And I think, again, sometimes I really love doing that. But also, we could, again, it's turning a little more to gratitude when we're like, okay, what did I learn from that? Maybe I don't love that that happened. Of course, no one would. But also, I don't want to carry around this horrible thing happened to me that shouldn't have, because it did. So, what was I meant to learn from it? you know, Again, be tender with yourself if you're, you know, in an extreme situation. I'm not saying these things are justified, but also the more we are carrying those hard feelings, it hurts us, not the person who did it to us. So, what are you guys thinking? What's on your mind? Do you have questions? We actually have some time this time. Has anyone been experiencing like some symptoms that are stressing you out? And Kim says, I really registered with the whole welcoming, encouraging the sensation, right? It's so tricky, but there will be times when it's easier to do than others, right? And remember, when it's like an 8, 9, or 10, we're not expected to just be like, oh, I'm embracing it. That's when you distract, right? And those are times when you use those avoidance techniques, as they call them. So don't be afraid. You're not doing it wrong. If you're not always tuning into the sensation, you don't get better by doing that necessarily. It's more decreasing the fear overall when it does happen. And sometimes you decrease the fear by watching a TV show that gets your mind off it, right? Like decreasing the fear is decreasing the fear. It doesn't really matter how we do it. Um, and then my symptoms shifted to fatigue, must be on the right track. Yeah. Isn't that a great way of looking on it? Looking at it, must be on the right track. And, when I see these patterns in people, like it's so easy for me to just be like, oh my gosh, this is so normal. I know this is that part where, you kind of go have some ups and downs and you're just like down at the very lowest point right now. But that just means you're going to be going back up soon, right? This is only going to be for so long. And those new symptoms can really throw you for a loop. I've had a lot of people say things like, I wish I had my back pain back because I hate this anxiety, or I hate this depression, right? I hate this fatigue. I wish, at least with my back pain, I was able to do some stuff. I knew what I could and couldn't do. Now I don't have that, but I'm so tired, I can't do anything either. And your brain is kind of teaching you, slow down, take care of yourself. We don't have to rush through life, right? Or whatever it is, right? So these are normal. Like one of those really hard things to to deal with sometimes, but hopefully I really like the positive shift of this chapter of, I mean, it's called taking your power back, right? And so it's like, yeah, your brain is going to throw a tantrum, but it's not going to be like this forever. And when people say, oh, I still get symptoms here and there, Dr. Schubiner says that, I still like once in a while will get a symptom, but it's not like if you're going through the symptom imperative stuff, it's not like this. Like it's one thing after another until you die. Like this is that extinction burst phase. Okay. Any other thoughts, questions? Want to share how it's going? Want to share any things that you found insightful? And always end early too, but since we have some time, let's let's talk. Okay, Chris, good meeting. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. Looking forward to writing this week. Yeah, we could take the last 10 minutes and do a writing exercise if you want. Because literally, like, you could do that on your own time. I'm happy to just answer some questions or give you some advice. This was awesome. Yes. Yeah, I think this was such a good chapter and hopefully timely for some people that needed it. Um, and Mary, thank you for your help on Friday. It was very insightful to me. Oh, good. Yeah, we had a little sesh. We did a session. Helps me do a brainstorm list. Okay, been working on my anxiety for 10 months and made great progress. Had emergency surgery 4 weeks ago and my nervous system went haywire. Working on getting back on track. Sensations are hard to differentiate between actual physical symptoms and MBS. Any suggestions? Um, yeah, that's for sure one of the toughest situations, right? And I think just there's really like absolutely no way to tell if it's from a physical injury or from mind body. That's what's so hard is they're the same neural circuits, right? So it's the same neural circuits. And so we don't know. Generally, pain from surgeries gets better with time, right? So as weeks pass, if things are getting worse and not better, then you know that is not the normal course of how healing happens. Um, so definitely be so gentle with yourself, work on getting your nervous system calmed and with compassion for yourself, because surgeries can be kind of medically traumatic. And so you just want to, the more you're regulated and the more you're taking care of your fear level and calming yourself. That's what I mean by nervous system regulation, like calming yourself at the body level. The easier it'll be to know if it's neuroplastic or not, right? So either way, the best you can do is just get yourself calmer and fear less and know that, some pain is normal and that will happen after surgery, but just try to catch any of those times you're feeling, that activation, the fear, you're going online to checking things, you're focusing on it, you're fixating on it. Try and do other things in your life. Try and fill some of the times with those emotions that are positive so that you won't be feeling the fear, at least during that time. It's like when people go to the gym and they're like, at least during that time, I'm not going to be eating, right? It's like, at least during this time that I'm feeling something good, I won't be feeling the fear. So at least that is going to, on purpose, rewire those pathways. But, those thoughts of like, this is temporary, even though you can say, but it was surgery, but we know things are healing, from day one. And then I like to just do, there's like some cell healing meditations on YouTube. It just makes me feel like I'm doing something, like I'm imagining my cells healing and I'm imagining, them getting the nutrients they need, right? It's just this visualizations that's very positive, that feels very soothing to my brain, like, oh, okay, I'm working on this, I'm doing this, right? You can kind of tell I'm this person that likes to do things, or at least that's how I've tried to always approach my problems. um Hopefully that helps, Jamie. But yeah, just be so compassionate with yourself and really, really notice when that fear is coming up. Chronic Pain Reset book is very useful. Lots of ideas on positive things one can do. Oh, PJ, I haven't even heard of that one. There's lots of new books coming out. Well, I don't even know if it's new, actually. A while ago, I stopped kind of reading all the other books because after The Way Out, I was like, okay, The Way Out and Schubiner are my books. Those are my go-tos. And I didn't want a lot of other influences, but I'm going to check that one out. All right, Melissa has to go. Mary says, be gentle with yourself, Jamie. Deep nasal breathing exercises really help me. Oh, good. Yeah. So yeah, depending on where your surgery is, you might want to breathe into the area. You might not want to breathe into the area. This is where you get to really focus on developing some of those, maybe those somatic tools that can be calming, like breathing, learning what other thing your body likes, right? Like maybe it's a heating pad, or maybe it's really soothing to have a certain smell, like candle or something, right? So this is your challenge, is to find those things that still, make you feel a little more human, a little less pain, a little more happy or joyful. And if you can do that, you're like Viktor Frankl in the, you know, camps, right? That found a way to be at peace even with the horror that was around him. So that's the example of like really shifting into what you can to calm yourself and soothe yourself and feel better and rewire that brain, right? We're teaching that brain new patterns. Tend to fixate by thinking there's a supplement or diet change that will be it, and it's not. Becky, Dr. Schubiner says some interesting stuff. I've been thinking a lot about placebos lately, and Dr. Schubiner, I'm in this group with him every month, and he's like, I love placebos. He's like, I'm a placebo doctor because what I'm doing is telling you you can believe in something different. You can change your mind. And so for some people, I'm not saying go and spend thousands of dollars on pills, but for some people, having that placebo as well as doing this kind of work can be something that's a little bit helpful, right? They're like, okay. But if you're thinking, like you were saying, it's going to be the supplement that's going to fix it, it's the diet change that's going to fix it. After enough times, a lot of people have seen, I can be on the most restrictive diet and still have symptoms. And that's when that's because of your stress level, not because of the food. And then, Betsy, what edition of the book were you using? My chapters are titled differently. Oh, interesting. So I'm using the um like a PDF that Dr. Schubiner gave me because I wanted it digital so I could make those slides. So he was nice enough to send me an actual PDF of the book. And just going to see if it says anything like that. So I'm curious. Yeah. So week 2 is not finding inner strength, or chapter 8 is not that. So I have the physical book, but I just don't ever pull it out. And I assumed, oh, she says chapter. Okay, you know what happened? Actually, no. So chapter 1, or sorry, chapter 7 is week 1, taking control of your life. And then, let's see, I'm thumbing through it. You're probably right. Let's see. Long chapter in paper. That's why we went over last week. That was such a long chapter. Okay, week 2, reclaiming the past. Okay, weird. And then what's week 3? Thank you so much, Kim. Dialogues towards understanding. Huh. So there's not even a finding the power within. So I know there are 2 versions of Unlearn Your Pain, and I did use the latest version is version 4 of Unlearn Your Pain, the 4th edition. So those slides I made were from the 4th edition, and actually, yeah, in this PDF it says chapter 8 is week 2, finding inner strength. Well, let's see. And the chapter actually does look different. Wow. Okay, well, that's super interesting. And you have edition 2 of Is it edition 2 of Unlearn Your Anxiety and Depression? I thought there was maybe only one edition, but
Edition 2 is the 2023.
oh, thanks, Kim, for just jumping on. Okay, so edition 2, oh, 2023. Yeah, I think I got this earlier than that. Is reclaiming the past. Okay, very interesting. Well, we just got a little bonus chapter, perhaps. I don't know what happened there. But I thought it was a really good chapter, so I'm glad we did it. So maybe we'll just add on a week or something. Let's see what it says in this PDF. What's the next chapter? Now I'm really confused. So glad you said that though, Kim, because probably other people had that same question. And they were just like, what is going on? And that's how I feel right now, a little bit. Oh, and there's a lot more to chapter 8. Okay, and week 3, dialogues towards understanding. So what I'll do is we might just have a hodgepodge of as I look through that reclaiming the past, we can see what is going on with that. Because it looks like after the unsent letters is actually in that chapter. I bet it's just a little different version of chapter 8, but he does go through some other things. Yeah, I think it was great regardless too, Kim. I was like, I just really like that chapter. So I think it was maybe just the right thing for someone. But definitely as I thumb through, there's some different things in this chapter. And I think there is one more meditation that we didn't talk about. Oh, for reprogramming the brain. Okay. So what we'll do, since we're at time, is next week we will do kind of like another version of chapter 8 before we move on to chapter 9, and we can just add a week on. So because I just was looking through this chapter 8 and it did have some cool stuff. So sorry if you're trying to follow along exactly in the book. You have a week to catch up, a week to do some of the other exercises, or jump ahead if you want. But we'll figure it out and we'll get through it. And that's even more information for us, I guess. Okay, great, you guys. Thanks. Take care. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.